How fantastic is it to be in a room full of cooperators who have a deep understanding of our unique structures. I think this initiative by the BCM is fantastic because the hardest part of telling our story, particularly to government, is our structure because they have a bit of trouble understanding it. So this will go a long way to help lift the understanding. Fantastic to be here. Almondco is a proud member of the BCCM and also very fortunate to be able to be a platinum sponsor for this year's event in Adelaide. Very well titled, strong, sustainable, purposeful leadership at this summit. So I think we covered off a lot of those topics with some fantastic speakers and panel guests today. A little bit about Almondco. We started as a true cooperative back in 1944. The Australian almond industry started in the southern vales of Adelaide, which is the home of almonds was Willunga, which is now a wine grape growing area. They still celebrate the Almond Blossom Festival every year down at Willunga. Still a very carnival-like event. But the industry sort of moved by chasing water security, so it's gone more upriver. So it's around Riverland, Sunraysia, and now in the Riverina in New South Wales. The almond cooperative structure for us lasted 50 years. In 1994, because of the geographical change in plantings, the cooperative decided to change its constitution and become an unlisted public company, but with a strong grower member-owned focus, which we still have today. And we built a purpose-built facility by changing that structure in Renmark, South Australia. That was a major, I think Brave was used a couple of times during today. That was a pretty brave move by a very small industry at that stage, relocating from Ora Street, Edwardstown and Adelaide to the Riverland in South Australia. Almondco now represents over 80% of the Australian almond growers. Our geographical spread goes from the Swan region in Western Australia all the way through to Northern Adelaide Plains, which is again one area that will probably come out of production due to housing development. Riverland, Sunraysia and Riverina, which has expanded quite quickly in that region. So from a humble beginning back in 1944, Almondco has grown significantly, particularly in the last 10 years where we've gone from 30 people to now 270 people. We have invested heavily in supply chain acquisitions and infrastructure to support our members. So we're a lot more from farm gate to market. We provide a lot deeper services to our members, which again I think positions the company very well going forward. BCCM's been a fantastic advocate for how we sort of fund major infrastructure. Just to give you a bit of an example, we've spent over 100 million over the last 10 years in building new facilities, not only at our Renmark headquarters in the Riverland, but also in the Riverina in New South Wales through a cooperative loan structure through New South Wales Treasury for New South Wales and PERS, or Primary Industry South Australia and South Australia. And again, like Melina's helped us front up to talk to the government or New South Wales Treasury, because we've got this unique thing in states that we probably don't all tap into. We certainly have, and if we don't use it, it will get taken away. And I think BCM are trying to advocate pretty hard for Queensland to bring it back there with expansion in macadamias and a few other cooperative models. So again, like there's talk to Melina and her team and Anthony to understand that there is a tax-effective loan you can get from government, and we really appreciate the support that we've received from Melina and her team. Today, very fortunate to have the Flying Dutchman come in to talk to us about the role globally of cooperatives. So Jeroen Douglas is the Director General of International Cooperative Alliance. It's the world's largest network of controlled enterprises, over 3 million cooperatives that represent 12% of the global population and generate around 280 million jobs. So it's a fairly significant role you got there. And it's fantastic to have you here today. I'd just like to just close to say, I'm not sure what the next phase is of the summit, but on behalf of I think everybody in the room, Melina, you've got a fantastic, Melina and your fantastic team, thank you very much for putting on a great summit. It's been fantastic. Jeroen.
Yeah. Can you hear me? Yes, now you can. So, good afternoon, everyone.
Nope.
I will try to bring some energy. And I will start by saying that I'm now 20 months in this role as Director General of the International Cooperative Alliance. But, and I've been to many summits and conferences already as part of my inauguration. But I have to say, Melina, you have set the standard for me of excellence. Thank you so much. I would like to give you an applause for what you have been doing. It's really amazing. Top quality, and I'm very happy to be here and proud to be here. I have a few slides only to run quickly before I will make my story, because not every one of you may know about the ICA, although you have worked there for many years. But I want to tell a little bit first on where I come from so that you have an understanding of my logic. So I worked 30 years in building sustainable supply chains. And the first thing I did straight out of university in 1988 was building with the group a local label for fair trade, which evolved into the global fair trade label. And it was the beginning of a journey whereby through the power, in this case, of consumers, we were paying a better price for farmers, trying to correct market forces through the power of consumer connection directly to farmers. That took 10 years, and from there we worked hard to mainstream the principles of fair trade, and that led to cooperative social responsibility programs. A lot of large corporates in the world came to visit my organization back then in the Netherlands, and a network of civil society organizations, to see how did you do that? How did you manage to get on the shelves of the main retailers, including Co-op in UK? And those corporate social responsibility programs have produced all kinds of labels, but the difference was it became gradually a license to operate for farmers rather than having them to get a better price. That was 10 years of work. Then the next 10 years of work was all about trying to further scale sustainability in what I would call this pyramid of change by bringing sector groups together in so-called round tables. Round tables for sustainable palm oil, round tables for responsible soya beans, for sugarcane. That was my first connection with Australia, by the way. Bon Sucro I co-created together with some farmers, I think from the north east of your country. And from there we did also the Global Roundtable of Sustainable Beef with participants from Australia. So that was another 10 years whereby we tried to get entire sectors on board in a sector transformation. So first movers, early adopters, early majority, led to a situation that those voluntary sustainability standards were transformed into mandatory sustainability standards, and that is what we call regulation. That's the fourth layer of this pyramid. In theory, that is hitting the entire sector. So that was our strategy on sector transformation. And when I joined the ICA, for me it was like the circle was full. because I realized that with sector transformation, I was working with all those larger corporates at the stock exchange. I did not really deliver on systems change. And systems change is what brought me to the International Cooperative Alliance, because I have had some significant experience with very large food and beverage and energy companies, stock related, and it was simply impossible to really bring them to, I would say, inclusive and sustainable performances. I can tell you much more about that. I have been working with cooperatives all my life, because coffee farmers, cocoa farmers, oil palm farmers, banana farmers are organized in co-ops. And then I realized there is this systems change, this real alternative for raw capitalism out there, and that is the cooperative and mutual business. So for those who don't know the ICA, and you know, Melina, because you've been working there for 10 years, for you this is easy, but just quickly, we are now with 320 members. It's an all-time high, operating in 117 countries. Most of those members are apex bodies, but here in Australia we are very thankful to have Capricorn and CBH Group next to BCCM as our three diamonds from Australia being member to the International Cooperative Alliance. We're very grateful for that. And as already said by the introduction, we are representing 3 million co-ops, 1.1 billion members, 2.4 trillion revenues, and that is excluding the Chinese. So China is not in those numbers because we didn't have the actual numbers, but I can promise you I've been there, and Jeroen already spoke about it, 205 million members. They were created 120 years back, and I spoke with leadership and they indicated clearly we were there before communism, and we are convinced we will also be there after. So there is a very strong and resilient experience of co-ops in China as well. So we don't have those 280 million people on our payroll, I can tell you, so luckily, but that's the number of direct and indirect work the movement is producing on world scale. So for time interest, is here you can see where we are based, but what is probably more interesting to show you is that we, as the ICA, operate as the custodian of the statement for the cooperative identity. This photograph was a reunion of the founding fathers of the first co-op in Rochdale. Photography didn't exist back then, so here they're older boys, but they were very young at that age. And in 1844, we started a process to gradually build a global institution. So the ICA was founded in 1895. We are celebrating our 130th anniversary this year. And here you see some of the milestones where we gradually moved towards having our clarity on what actually is a cooperative. And as you see in 2024, we entered into the second time International Year of Cooperatives. So I think most of you know this, and by the way, in the beautiful booklet that has been circulated, you can find all those 7 principles back. I will not waste too much time on that, but in essence, this is what co-ops are all about. And as the ICA, as a custodian, we ensure that we are together making it more modern if necessary, or not at all. That's an inclusive process, very democratic, to see how we can keep up with the sign of the times. So we launched a new strategy just recently, Practice, Promote and Protect. We adopted it in our General Assembly a few months back. And the essence of that strategy is that we have an alpha, which is our mission, that is to practice and to promote and to protect our identity, but we also have our omega. And that is that we have a future where we believe that co-ops are becoming larger in the market as an essential alternative to the model, the dominant model of capitalism. So we are, as a cooperative, actually operating like a helicopter, locally, regionally, and also globally, because I really believe that in that interconnectivity, we together can create a tissue that can change a lot in the world. But we have a PR problem, I believe. Barack Obama said once, co-ops are the best kept secret, and that's not good. I sometimes think we don't have our act sufficiently together. I even believe that sometimes we are suffering from an inferiority complex, because why are we not every day on the front page as the alternative way forward? I think that is very important. 2025, this year, is a tipping point year. So we are facing a dramatic paradigm shift in the social, economical, and political world. And that collides precisely with the United Nations International Year of Cooperatives. A beautiful gift, because we can use this very year to show in this tipping point year that there is a way out. And why do I say tipping point year? Because 5 global crises are coming together at a peak, we believe. First of all, there is armed conflicts. 122, according to the United Nations, are currently taking place, never as much as since the Second World War. So that is a huge problem. Secondly, we have the issue of climate change. We are not going to meet the Paris Accord. We have 50% more CO2 particles in the atmosphere as before the Industrial Revolution, and the growth pace is 60 times faster than expected. So climate change is a huge problem. The third one is inequality. Half of the world population lives still under $7 per day, and only 15% of global population earn more than $15,000 per year. Fourthly, we have this major issue of migration, which is just the beginning. I spoke over lunch. We need to be prepared, because in 2050, larger parts of Africa and Asia will be uninhabitable because of climate change and heat. 2 billion migrants are expected to flee away from these regions, 2 billion. And the fifth major tipping point crisis is the social shift because of AI and the technology that sort of hijacked our sense of community. So those 5 large issues is where the ICA, with all the co-ops, want to formulate answers on. And we are able to do that, and that's the good news. Because when we go one by one, if we look to the problem of peace and war, you have seen also through the enlightening example of Jeroen that co-ops can and will support to peace. Actually, where cooperatives are active, there is no time for making war. And that's a good experiment. And where we see cooperatives most, we see less military conflicts. So on climate change, I believe that the agricultural sector of cooperatives, half of that 1.1 billion, can help to produce food, because we need 70% more food between now and 2050 by building climate-smart solutions. And I participated this morning. There's so much awareness here in Australia on making that happen. Feeding the world is one of Australia's major prides, and co-ops are playing a leading role there. If we move to inequality, it is through, I would say, equitable growth and access to finance that can help co-ops being the engine for prosperous jobs, good livelihood. So, and then when it comes to AI and the change of social life, I believe that a democratic digitalization can be our joint answer to an overtake by the so-called Magnificent Seven. So that is the backdrop where we are. And I believe that with that, we can deliver a great experience at the upcoming Second World Social Summit. So this is just a snapshot of a website. We call it cm50.coop. You just have here a snapshot of 8 of our members, but we have already 50 members. We call it CM50, Cooperative Mutuals 50. Our own global BCCM in the building, I would say, at global scale, where we are going to make the pitch in Qatar, Doha, already on the 3rd and the 4th of November, to show a contract for a new global economy. And what I'm very proud of is that we are managing to bring leaders like Jeroen, but also other leaders from a similar stature from our movement, who represent the largest and more leading cooperatives, to make a statement at Doha, where the heads of states are there, that we can really make a difference, that we together have the key to get out of this next series of crises. And as a group, we came together in preparation, and we have identified 4 major mandates where we want to work on. And the first one is indeed building resilient communities, post-conflict and rebuild. We have already good examples in the making. 25% of the globe is either in a war or just coming out of it. So co-ops need to play a major role there. The second mandate or commitment we want to work on is to create much more capital coming to co-ops. Co-ops can get money through their members, through banks, but also we need to see how capital markets can spur the further development of co-op and ensure equitable, inclusive growth. Thirdly, with this digital democratization, we hope to build our own, as one of our leaders, in this case Debbie Robinson would say, our own ethical Amazon. We want a global B2B, and it's been a long time dream also with members from the ICA, but now with AI, that same AI, we have the technology at hand to make this really work. So that is the next big component where we're going to work on for the next years. And lastly, purposeful leadership. So I would say strong, inclusive and sustainable leadership. Precisely the title of this summit is the 4th commitment that we want to bring to Doha and show with that leadership group at a global level that we can make a difference. It will have its ramifications to the different countries. So I'm very proud that we are going to go there. Some closing thoughts. And this has to do, for some of you already know, with what we call the super cycle, economic super cycles. There is this economist called Kondratiev who has indicated clearly that for a series of variables, every 40 years, a paradigm shift is taking place. The last one was when the Berlin Wall fell. It was the end of history. The one before was the end of the Second World War. That was, of course, the period of when rebuild started, the Cold War was there. And the one before that was what we call the end of the golden era and the beginning of industrial tyrants. We're very close to this 40-year cycle. And as I said at the beginning, 2025 is a tipping point year. It's a year of a paradigm shift in the making. And I'm convinced the next 3-4 years, we will, through some disruptions, be that antidote, as indicated before, to ensure that we can overcome this Pluto-populism, and that we can overcome the dominance of AI through a small cluster of companies. Because I believe that co-ops and mutuals do have the keys of resilience. It survived the First World War, it survived the Second World War, and I'm convinced it will survive also this major paradigm shift that is in the making. To end on a high note, I want Australia to be part of that movement. You are part of it. And it's important to realize that if we deliver well, that the Secretary General of the United Nations himself said, if you come with a concrete product out of this international year, and CM50 will be that product, we will ensure there is a resolution to be adopted in December that every 10 years we will have an International Year of Cooperatives. Thank you.